important the transatlantic ties are. When you have a conversation on a week like this about an island like Greenland, of course it's a national security topic, but it needs to be considered, I think, in the context of these economic ties. When it comes to AI, I think people in Europe often look at the United States and say, well, we need this or we need that, but they forget they have ASML, they have Ericsson, they have Nokia, they have SAP, they have Siemens. There is a very important tech sector in Europe already. And if you look at the ties across the Atlantic, it's easy for Americans to forget that 70% of foreign investment into the United States comes from the rest of NATO. 40% of American exports globally go to the rest of NATO. So we always need to remember the context in which these issues need to be considered.
If you think about the changes that AI is having on the geopolitical environment, Brad, would you say that that AI is doing more to bring countries together? Is it doing more to force countries apart, or is it, on average, kind of absent from that conversation?
I would probably say, on average, it remains absent, but it is going to become more important every year. And when you look at the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, when you look at India, I think you see the future, and you see the role that AI is playing there already, and you see the role that that will play, I think, in both growing their economies, but connecting their economies in new ways with the rest of the world.
So, Ashwini, incredible talent base, fastest growing major economy in the world, an AI player, but clearly in the second grouping that Kristalina is talking about, have to think about alignments with the United States or China to a degree, but how much do you have to think about that as a country like India? How much can you chart your own course irrespective of what the Americans and Chinese are doing?
Actually, clearly in the first group, and the reason for that is there are 5 layers in the AI architecture: the application layer, the model layer, the chip layer, the infra layer, and the energy layer. We are working on all the 5 layers, making very good progress in all the 5 layers. On the application layer, we will probably be the biggest supplier of services to the world. Go to an enterprise, understand the business of enterprise, understand the working of that enterprise, and provide that service using AI applications. That's going to be the biggest factor of success or successful deployment of AI, because that's where ROI comes from. ROI doesn't come from creating a very large model. 95% of the work can happen with models which are 20 billion or 50 billion parameters. We are creating a bouquet of such models. We already have. We already have a bouquet of such models which are now being deployed in multiple sectors to increase the productivity, to increase the efficiency, to increase the effective use of technology. So our focus is very much on making sure that AI diffusion happens in a very big way. And I don't know what the IMF criteria has been, but Stanford places India as 3rd in terms of AI penetration, in terms of AI preparedness, and in terms of AI talent. All the 3, actually on AI talent it is number 2. So I don't think your classification in the second bouquet is right. It's actually in the first.
So talk about in India, in an environment where the AI shifts in geopolitics are happening so quickly. Again, this was a conversation that didn't even exist at the World Economic Forum 5 years ago. And you now have radically different capabilities in different countries around the world. India has become a geopolitical player in its own right in the last 10 years. Didn't even want to play geopolitics before Modi came in. How does AI play into that capacity around the world, into what India wants to be on the global stage?
Listen, if you look at the way AI is shaping geopolitics, what can a country which has a very large model, let's say, without taking any names, can it switch off that model? Fair, switch it off. What will happen to a country like India? We have our own bouquet of models which can be used for 95% of the work that we require to do. So, does creating a large model give you a geopolitical power? I don't think so. It might actually be causing certain conditions where the people who are creating those large models might go bust in the coming years. You never know. They might go bankrupt in the coming years. The situation is We have to understand the economics of this new, I call it fifth industrial revolution. We must see the economics of the fifth industrial revolution. The economics of this fifth industrial revolution is going to come from ROI. ROI is going to come from deploying the lowest cost solution to get the highest possible return. If you have a 50 billion parameter model, you can deploy it using one GPU. And if you have a 30 billion parameter model, which is absolutely good for 80% of your work, you don't even require a GPU. Where is the geopolitical thing in that? You have a large number of CPUs working in the entire world, and people are coming with custom silicon from amazing number of companies and countries where you wouldn't require to be dependent on any particular country. So that the so-called geopolitical edge that you are probably hinting at is not there.
So, given that, I mean, without naming names, Khalid, Ashwini was just talking about, you know, a lot of people that have been raising a lot of money in the United States with models that he thinks aren't going to be as effective as India's model, whatever bucket they're in. Now, you're the one that's thinking about deploying enormous amounts of assets for your country, both in Saudi Arabia and all over the world. And as you're thinking about the most revolutionary set of technologies out there, what are you looking for that's going to make you convinced that this is a winner, this is a loser, as these different countries and different companies are doing very different things?
Yeah, well, first, I think everybody agrees that AI as a general purpose technology is truly the transformation of this century and of our time. However, like transformation before, I think it will quickly be commoditized, and it's not going to be held in any one company or any one country. The race is on. Everybody wants to build the infrastructure for it, but it is I think the essence of AI's power is it has to be accessible. So the words diffusion is not just within economies that have to compete, but I believe it has to be done globally. From our perspective as an energy-producing nation, the diffusion of hydrocarbon energy that Saudi Arabia produced for 9 decades has enabled tremendous human development in countries like India, China, United States, Europe, where that energy transformed economies and people's lives. The internet did the same thing. There were a few companies, Microsoft was one of them, that had the lead, but ultimately it's coming from across the world, including emerging economies and developing nations. We are manufacturing servers for data centers today in Saudi Arabia through partnerships. So we believe that optionality is very important. We don't know who's going to be ahead 4 or 5 years from now. I think it's clear U.S. companies that have broke out of this technology race are ahead today. But the essence of Saudi Arabia's strategy towards AI, it's a huge boost for diversification. Vision 2030, launched by His Royal Highness the Crown Prince almost 10 years ago, was underpinned by diversification using new economies. So the energy transition, although it may appear to be competing with our traditional resource of hydrocarbon energy, is actually a pillar of our diversification. We're going to be 50% renewables in our electricity mix, and that renewable will power AI that is going to be a global commodity that we will work with. And just like India, we know this is not just about infrastructure, data center, and the energy competitive advantage that we believe Saudi Arabia is second to none. We're investing across the technology stack in applications and LLMs and in connectivity. Again, because we believe that this is going to be a global good. So just as important as building the data hub that Saudi Arabia is building, we need to be connected. And we are connected to Europe, Asia, countries like India, China, Japan, because we want that data and that AI power to be transmitted across border and across economies.
Now, as we think about AI as having dual-use capabilities, as the United States government is leaning more into industrial policy with other countries around the world, as the Chinese also have a lot of leverage in the investments that they make and that they accept, are you feeling any geopolitical pressure in the decisions that you make from an investment perspective into these areas?
You know, quite frankly, we have invested across the globe, and we have invested in Saudi Arabia with companies from East and West. U.S. is huge today because of their technology lead, as I mentioned, but we've also had investments with Chinese companies in China and digital technologies. We've invested with Japanese companies, Korean companies, across the technology sectors that we invest in. So optionality is very important. It's something we have now, and we protect because we believe that we are the owners of our own destiny, and we will not let go of that.
So if that's the broad geopolitics that we're looking at, Kristalina, you brought up at the beginning also inside countries, lots of people that are not necessarily benefiting. You're already seeing improvements in economic numbers from productivity and AI. You're already seeing that.
What we are seeing is that there are indeed jobs that get enhanced, and we also see jobs that are replaced by AI. This is happening categorically. It is hard to have a consolidated and broadly accepted definition of how we measure. The way we measure at the IMF, we have a fairly big range of impact on growth, global growth, from 0.1 to 0.8%. Let me just say that 0.8% is huge. If we get 0.8% boost on productivity, this would make global growth now higher than in the pre-pandemic period. 0.1 is kind of modest. And then the question is, how do we know where we land? And what we are doing is we are working with other researchers to try to capture productivity enhancement. And I can tell you it is not easy because, is it because of AI or is it because organizationally there are improvements that are made? I'll tell you, in my organization, the most visible places where AI is boosting productivity are two. One, translation and interpretation. We got from 200 to 50. 150 are replaced by AI. And in research analysts, there we are actually just able to do much more high quality research. In other words, it is enhancement, not a replacement. My big worry is that you go in communities where AI is not present. And there, how do people prepare for it? There is nothing happening now. And actually, we did something. I'm not going to vouch 100% this is correct, but we did a review to see countries where there is demand for AI skills, whether this demand is matched with supply of AI skills. And we found a very interesting picture. In some countries, demand is very high, supply is low. Some actually developed countries. In some countries, supply is very high. You have tons of skilled people, but the economy is not absorbing that supply. And the sad story is the countries where there is neither demand nor supply. And that risk of this massive divergence is at the country level then mirrors within countries.
So Brad, Kristalina, with this evocative accordion analogy, which is affecting not only countries but also populations, you've been on the front lines of this in the United States. You see now suddenly this raise in opposition to data centers and people saying, oh, we're unhappy, you know, we don't think the water, it's electricity, we're not going to see the jobs. I mean, and a lot of people expect that given the shift in skills that are necessary, given the transition, that you're going to see that America's ripe for another wave of populism. How do you think the companies, not just Microsoft, but across the board, need to get ahead of this? What do they need to do that they're not necessarily doing now?
Well, the big issue in the United States is, as you just mentioned, Ian, it really is around communities with data centers. And yeah, it's coming at a time when the number one political issue, the number one economic issue is probably affordability, the impact of inflation. So people see these large construction projects. They know that those jobs actually are good jobs, skilled labor jobs, not just people doing construction work, but it's skilled electricians, skilled pipe fitters. But they also know that once the construction is over, the number of jobs is still significant, in the hundreds, but not higher. But what they're really asking is, what does this mean for me and my family? Are we going to pay higher electricity prices? Is the water pressure in our showers going to be impacted? Who's really going to get these jobs? Is it going to be my family and my neighbors, or is it going to be somebody who moves into town from somewhere else? Those are completely legitimate questions. And I think it's incumbent on all of us in the industry in the United States to address them head on and offer the kinds of assurances that people need, that we will invest in electricity so that people's electricity rates don't increase, that we'll replenish more water in these communities than we use, that will work with the kind of training, whether it's skilled labor or IT jobs or other ongoing jobs, so that local residents can fill them. And I think as data centers spread, inevitably, people in other parts of the world will ask the same question. If people benefit, will it be us? And I think people have a right to expect their share.